In the desolate autumn of 1373, the warship Saint Hilarion sailed from Brittany on a mission of steel and faith. On board, 100 soldiers, a bishop, and his sacred relics. But the ship never reached its destination. It vanished without a trace into an unnatural fog that tasted of cold iron, leaving behind only a ghost story whispered in taverns for generations. Then, exactly 300 years later, on the very anniversary of its disappearance, the Saint Hilarion was sighted again. It was not a wreck, but a vessel untouched by time, its timbers sound, its sail perfectly furled. Naval archives would document the impossible truth. The ship was pristine, but its crew, its soldiers, and its bishop were gone. This is the official account of a vessel that did not sink, but was taken, and then, inexplicably, sent back. These are the forbidden chapters of maritime history, accounts of events that defy the known laws of our world. If you believe the ocean still holds secrets that challenge our understanding of time itself, then join our global expedition into the unknown. Subscribe to the Maritime Chronicler, and in the comments below, tell us from what port of call you are joining our voyage tonight. Let us cast our minds back then to that fateful autumn morning in 1373. The air was crisp with the promise of winter, carrying the sharp scent of brine and damp stone from the ancient quay. The Breton sky, a bruised purple bruised with the coming dawn, stretched over the bustling port of Saint Malo, a hive of activity even at this ungodly hour. There, nestled amongst lesser craft, sat the Saint Hilarion, a stout cog, her single mast reaching towards the heavens like a skeletal finger, her timbers dark and resolute against the fading night. She was a vessel built for purpose, for the unforgiving embrace of the Atlantic, her stout oak hull having weathered a score of gales, her rigging a labyrinth of ropes and spars, each one a testament to countless voyages. On her quarterdeck stood Captain Thomas Dubois, a man whose face was a roadmap of sun and salt, his eyes the color of a stormy sea, fixed on the horizon that still bled with the last vestiges of night. His hands, gnarled and strong, gripped the smooth, worn wood of the railing, his breath misting in the cold air. He was a mariner of quiet renown, his courage forged in tempests, his judgment sharpened by decades of navigating treacherous currents and hidden reefs. But this voyage, he knew, felt different. It was not merely a journey of trade or exploration. The Saint Hilarion was laden not just with provisions and the hopes of a nation, but with a living, breathing cargo of grim intent. 100 hardened men-at-arms, their steel breastplates and helmets glinting with the first pale light, clanked across her decks, their purpose grim and unyielding. They were bound for a crucial siege, a desperate gamble in the unending wars that clawed at the soul of France. Their faces, though resolute, held the weary stoicism of those who knew the taste of battle, the cold caress of steel. Their weapons, freshly oiled, their banners, tightly furled, spoke of a destiny yet to unfold, a bloody chapter awaiting its pen. And among them, cloaked in the solemn dignity of his office, was the venerable Bishop Armand. His presence, an anomaly among the grim soldiers, was a spiritual anchor, a beacon of faith against the encroaching dread of war and the boundless, hungry sea. His reliquaries, encased in polished silver and gold, gleamed faintly in the dim light of the lantern-lit deck, their ancient sacred contents a silent prayer against the unknown. His own prayers, a constant murmur, were a shield against the encroaching dread, a quiet liturgy against the roar of the coming conflict. He was a man of God, but also a man of his time, understanding the necessity of steel, even as he blessed the men who wielded it. Their mission was clear, their path set. The lines were cast off with a low groan of rope and timber. The great single sail, heavy with the morning's dampness, began to unfurl, catching the hesitant breath of the wind. The Saint Hilarion began to move, slowly at first, then gathering a ponderous momentum, her bow slicing through the dark waters of the harbor, leaving a churning wake in her passage. The last faint shouts from the quay, the distant peal of a church bell, faded into the growing expanse of the open sea. But as the day bled into afternoon and the sun climbed higher, breaking through the clouds with a pale, indifferent light. An unnatural stillness descended upon the waters. The wind, which had been their boisterous companion, pushing them onward or playfully buffeting their sails, seemed to sigh one last mournful breath and then vanished entirely. The Saint Hilarion wallowed in the sudden, oppressive calm, her great sail hanging limp and useless, like the wing of a dying bird. The rhythmic creak and groan of her timbers, usually a comforting lullaby to the sailors, now sounded amplified, almost accusatory, in the profound silence that had fallen. Then came the fog, not the usual swirling mist of the channel, which rolled in with the tide and carried the salty tang of the open ocean. This was different. This was a palpable, suffocating shroud, thick as seabed silt, gray and featureless, that rolled in from the west. It did not drift, it advanced, a silent, implacable wall. It swallowed the sun, turning the sky into a uniform, leaden ceiling. It consumed the distant coastline, erasing all landmarks. And finally, it swallowed the ship herself. The last sight of the Saint Hilarion from the shore was her stern lantern, a lonely, flickering eye, being consumed by the gray, impenetrable void, a final, desperate blink before the world closed in around her. The air, for those who watched from the shore, tasted of iron and silence. And then there was nothing, only the cold, indifferent expanse of the sea and the memory of a ship that had simply ceased to be. The hours that followed the Saint Hilarion's engulfment were consumed by a growing dread, which soon ripened into frantic, desperate searches. From Saint-Malo, then from other ports along the rugged Breton coast, fishing boats, their sails straining against the capricious winds, were dispatched. Coastal patrols, usually reserved for chasing smugglers or warning off pirates, now scoured every cove, every stretch of the treacherous, rock-strewn shoreline. Even a royal galley, a vessel of considerable might and speed, was diverted from its duties, its oarsmen pulling with grim determination, its lookouts straining their eyes against the relentless gray of the ocean. But the sea, in its vast, indifferent wisdom, yielded nothing. Not a single splintered timber, no tattered remnants of a sail, no telltale flotsam to hint at a demise. There were no bodies washing ashore, no grim testament to the fate of the 100 soldiers, the venerable bishop, or Captain Dubois and his crew. It was as if the Saint Hilarion had never existed, had simply been erased from the very fabric of reality, leaving behind only a gaping void where a ship and its souls had once been. The ocean had swallowed them whole, without a trace, without a burp. Official reports, penned with heavy hearts and ink-stained fingers by solemn clerks in the Port Authority, declared the vessel and all aboard irrevocably lost to the merciless deep. The precise date of her vanishing, October 18, 1373, was etched into the somber annals of maritime disaster, a stark reminder of the ocean's insatiable appetite. Captain Dubois, Bishop Armand, and the 100 soldiers became names whispered with reverence and sorrow, names etched into the cold stone of memorial plaques in quiet churchyards along the coast, their fate a grim, unyielding reminder of the sea's power. For generations, the tale of the Saint Hilarion became more than just a historical tragedy. It transformed into a cautionary whisper, a ghost story told around flickering hearths on long winter nights when the wind howled like a banshee through the chimneys. Mothers would warn their children of the ship that sailed into the gray void, a place from which no one ever returned. Fishermen, their faces etched with the harsh realities of their trade, would speak of the Saint Hilarion in hushed tones, attributing her disappearance to the malevolent spirits of the deep, to ancient curses, or to the very breath of the abyss itself. She became a legend of the abyss claiming its due, a chilling testament to the sea's boundless, unknowable power. The ship had sailed into a mystery, a profound, unsettling enigma that swallowed men and timber alike. And for 3 long centuries, that mystery remained sealed, locked away not just in the cold, dark embrace of the watery depths, but in the collective subconscious of a people who understood the ocean not merely as a body of water, but as a living, hungry entity. The Saint Hilarion was gone, and the world had moved on, leaving her fate to the realm of myth and forgotten sorrow. But some secrets, my friends, refuse to stay buried. But the sea, my friends, is a keeper of secrets, a vast, churning repository of forgotten lore and untold wonders. And sometimes, in its own unfathomable rhythm, in a timing that defies the linear march of human understanding, it chooses to release them. Fast forward then, exactly 300 years. The calendar pages of history have turned, 3 centuries having passed, like the relentless turning of the tides. The year is 1673. The month once again is autumn. The very air, though different in its quality, still carried the sharp tang of the Breton coast, the cries of gulls, and the distant, mournful sigh of the Atlantic. A small, weather-beaten fishing ketch, named the Seagull's Cry, a vessel whose very timbers seemed imbued with the salt of countless voyages, was plying her trade off that very same stretch of craggy coastline, the same waters that had swallowed the Saint Hilarion so long ago. She was piloted by a grizzled old salt named Jean-Luc, a man whose face was a testament to a life spent battling the elements. His eyes, though lined with age, still held the piercing keenness of a raptor. With him were his 2 sons, young, strong, and eager, their hands already calloused from the demanding work of hauling nets from the cold, deep embrace of the ocean. The morning had dawned clear and cold, the sky a vault of pale, hopeful blue, reflecting a sea that was, for once, unusually calm. The nets, though heavy with the morning's catch of shimmering mackerel, were being hauled in with the familiar rhythmic grunts of tired men. A quiet sense of contentment, born of hard work and a bountiful harvest, settled over the small vessel. But as the sun climbed higher, warming the air, a peculiar shimmering haze began to settle on the horizon to the west. It wasn't fog, not precisely, but a distortion, a wavering curtain of light that seemed to ripple like heat off a forge, yet carried the cold breath of the deep. Then, through the silvered air, they saw it. At first, a mere smudge, a darker patch against the shimmering distortion, but rapidly, impossibly, it began to resolve into a distinct, undeniable shape. It was a ship, an ancient cog, her high stern unmistakable, her single mast rising proudly, a stark silhouette against the strange light. Her lines were too clean, her form too perfect. Jean-Luc, his hands suddenly still on the wet ropes, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. His breath caught in his throat, a silent gasp. His memory, long and deep, stretched back to the tales of his own grandfather, whispers of a ship lost to time, a legend woven into the very fabric of their coastal community. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, but the vessel remained, unwavering, impossibly present. It was impossible. Such a vessel, if it had truly been lost for 3 centuries, should have been a wreck, barnacle encrusted, its timbers rotting, its sails long since devoured by the elements. It should have been nothing but a skeleton of a ship, swallowed by the sands of time, dissolved by the relentless hunger of the sea. Yet, she rode the gentle swell with an uncanny dignity, her great furled sail appearing stout and strong, her dark oak timbers unblemished, as if newly cut, freshly planed. There was no sign of age, no mark of decay. She was pristine, perfectly preserved, a ship plucked from the moment of her disappearance. Jean-Luc's eyes, keen despite his years, focused on the faded yet still legible name painted on her stern, standing out against the dark wood with an almost luminous quality. His lips parted, forming the words that seemed torn from the very fabric of legend. Saint Hilarion. The impossible truth descended upon the small ketch with the crushing weight of the deepest ocean. This was not a mirage. This was the lost ship, returned. A vessel that had defied all logic, all natural law, all human understanding. A ship that had not merely survived the passage of time, but had simply, inexplicably, ignored it. It was a paradox, a chilling, breathtaking wonder riding the waves before them. A ghost ship that was, somehow utterly, undeniably real. Word of the impossible sighting spread like wildfire along the rugged Breton coast, carried by the frantic shouts of fishermen. then by the thunder of hooves as messengers galloped towards the nearest naval garrisons. Initially, the authorities, steeped in the rigid logic of the material world, were skeptical. They spoke of exhaustion, of sunstroke, of the well-known sailors' propensity for tall tales born of too much rum and too much loneliness. But the sheer number of independent witnesses, the unwavering conviction in old Jean-Luc's eyes, could not be easily dismissed. And so, a patrol frigate, the Vigilant, a sleek modern warship bristling with cannon and manned by disciplined sailors, was dispatched to investigate. The morning was clear as the frigate approached the coordinates provided. Her captain, a stern, rational man named Commander Dubois, no relation to the lost captain, though the coincidence was not lost on him, stood on his bridge, his spyglass fixed on the distant, improbable silhouette. And there she was, the Saint Hilarion, undeniable. When the boarding party, a small detachment of heavily armed Marines and a nervous port official, stepped onto her decks, a profound, eerie silence greeted them. It was a silence so absolute, so complete, that it seemed to absorb all other sound, the very creak of their boots on the ancient timbers echoing like thunderclaps. Every plank was clean, scrubbed smooth by centuries of unknown currents, yet miraculously unblemished. Every rope was coiled with a precision that defied the passage of time, as if the crew had simply stepped away for a moment. Below deck, the cabins were untouched, a tableau frozen in a moment 3 centuries past. Food, though desiccated and ancient, sat on tables as if awaiting a meal, a ghostly banquet. Personal effects, a neatly folded tunic, a wooden comb beside a tarnished mirror, a set of bone dice scattered beside a half-finished game of checkers, lay exactly where they had been left, undisturbed by the passage of ages or the ravages of the sea. There was no dust, no grime, no sign of decay. It was a perfectly preserved snapshot of a moment 3 centuries past, a scene of daily life abruptly abandoned, frozen in time. But there was no one, not a single soul. The 100 hardened soldiers, their steel and their grim purpose, utterly absent. The venerable Bishop Armand, his prayers and his reliquaries, entirely gone. Captain Dubois, his charts, and his command vanished. The entire crew, from the lowliest cabin boy to the most experienced bosun, utterly gone, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the ghost of their presence, an unsettling vacuum where vibrant life had once been. The ship's holds, which ancient records indicated had been groaning with military supplies, were empty. No weapons, no armor, no personal effects of the soldiers. It was as if the Saint Hilarion had been meticulously stripped of its human element, or rather, as if its human element had been plucked from it, leaving behind only the inanimate shell, a perfectly preserved wooden coffin for 100 missing souls. There was no sign of struggle, no bloodstains on the deck, no splintered doors, no indication of forced entry or violent demise. It wasn't a mutiny, nor a pirate attack. It was a complete, silent, and inexplicable removal, a clean excision. The only thing they found, nestled on the captain's chart table, beneath a compass whose needle still swung freely, was the ship's logbook. Its leather cover was unblemished, its pages pristine, open to its final chilling entry, the ink seemingly as fresh as the day it was written. This was no ordinary ghost ship, no decaying phantom sailing on spectral winds. This was a paradox, a vessel that had defied the very current of time itself, returned from an impossible journey, bringing with it more questions than answers. If these whispers from the deep, these tales of impossible journeys and temporal distortions, stir your own curiosity, lend us your support. Like this video, subscribe to the Maritime Chronicler, and join our voyage into the unknown, where the boundaries of reality blur and the ocean holds secrets that defy explanation. The logbook of the Saint Hilarion, now a prized and deeply unsettling artifact, carefully preserved under glass within the archives of the French Admiralty, is a testament to the crew's final, desperate moments. Its very existence, unmarred by centuries of unknown passage, is a miracle in itself, a chilling testament to the strange journey the vessel undertook. For the initial days of the voyage, Captain Dubois' entries were routine. penned in a steady, disciplined hand. Precise course corrections, detailed weather observations, the rationing of dwindling fresh water supplies, and the low, simmering morale of the soldiers, their steel-clad bodies restless, eager for the sight of land and the grim purpose of their mission. Then, abruptly, the tone shifts. On the morning of October 18, 1373, a date now etched into the very fabric of maritime mystery, an entry appears that signals the beginning of the impossible. 800 hours. A fog, unlike any I have witnessed, has descended upon us. It did not roll in from the sea, but seemed to well up from the very depths, clinging to the rigging like a shroud of damp, cold silk. It carries no scent of the sea, no familiar tang of salt or iodine, but rather a strange, metallic odor, like ancient, disturbed earth. The air is unnaturally still, save for a low, persistent hum that vibrates through the timbers of the ship, a sound felt more than heard, resonating deep within the bone, compass spinning erratically, its needle dancing a mad jig, refusing to settle on true north. The next entry, scrawled almost illegibly, its usually neat lines now a testament to a trembling hand, speaks of profound disorientation and a growing primal fear. 1400 hours. The sun. It is not where it should be. Though the sky is obscured by the relentless fog, a pale, sickly light penetrates the gloom, diffused as if through ancient, flawed glass, casting no shadows. The very light seems wrong, alien. The crew whispers of shadows, of impossible shapes in the mist. Not ships, not land, but fleeting, formless things that shift and writhe at the periphery of vision. They speak of other vessels, glimpsed for a moment, vessels with strange, tall masts and unfamiliar rigging, ships that have not been built yet, or perhaps ships from a time long past. Bishop Armand has retired to his cabin, his face ashen, his rosary clutched tight in his trembling hands. He murmurs constantly, his prayers a frantic, desperate litany, speaking of the veil between worlds being drawn thin, of God's light receding. And then, the final terrifying lines, written with an almost desperate urgency, the captain's resolve finally shattering under the weight of the inexplicable, his thoughts fading into a desperate, unfinished thought. 2200 hours. The air tastes of iron and eternity, a cold, vast emptiness that chills the very soul. The stars, they are wrong. Not the stars of home, not the constellations by which I have navigated for 40 years. They are alien, cold points of light in a sky that is not our sky. We are sailing, not on water, but on something else, something cold and vast that is not the sea, something that resists the keel, yet offers no purchase. Bishop Armand prays constantly now, his voice a broken whisper, his eyes wide with a terror that eclipses even his faith. God help us, for this is not of this world. The ink smears abruptly, a dark, jagged blotch, the sentence unfinished. It is as if the captain himself had simply ceased to exist mid-stroke, plucked from his post, his pen still poised over the page, his final desperate thoughts swallowed by whatever impossible phenomenon consumed the Saint Hilarion that night. The logbook remains, a silent, chilling testament to a voyage that ended not in shipwreck, but in an inexplicable erasure, a journey into a realm where the very laws of reality bent and broke. The riddle of the Saint Hilarion deepened with every examination, every meticulous survey conducted by the most learned scholars and experienced naval officers of the age. It was not merely the ship's miraculous preservation that defied logic. It was the chilling, absolute absence of her human cargo. Not only were Captain Dubois, Bishop Armand, and the 100 soldiers entirely absent, but so too was every shred of their personal gear, the soldiers' armor, their polished steel breastplates and helmets, their swords sheathed and ready for battle, their very boots from their feet, all utterly gone. The heavy functional cloaks that would have protected them from the biting channel winds, the personal trinkets and letters from home they would have carried in their pouches, the crude wooden game pieces they might have used to pass the long hours at sea, vanished as completely as if they had never existed. And Bishop Armand, a man of considerable earthly possessions befitting his station, presented an even greater enigma. His precious reliquaries, ornate containers of saintly relics, which would have been among the most valuable items aboard, were gone. His ornate vestments, the richly embroidered robes worn for Mass, the very episcopal ring he would have worn on his finger, even the simple wooden cross he wore about his neck, utterly vanished. His cabin, though perfectly preserved in its order, was stripped of all that defined his presence. The ship's holds, which ancient records indicated had been groaning with military supplies, barrels of gunpowder, bales of linen for bandages, sacks of dried meat, were empty of all but the most basic, unperishable provisions. Barrels of dried salted fish, sacks of grain, and casks of water, all perfectly preserved, untouched by time or decay, stood in neat rows. It was as if the ship had been meticulously, surgically stripped of its human element, or rather, as if its human element had been plucked from it, leaving behind only the inanimate shell, a vessel suddenly rendered vacant. What added to the profound unease was the utter lack of any sign of struggle. There were no bloodstains on the deck planks, no splintered doors, no overturned furniture, no signs of a desperate fight. It wasn't a mutiny, for there was no chaos. It wasn't a pirate attack, for no valuables were taken, and the ship itself remained unharmed. It was a complete, silent, and inexplicable removal, a clean excision. The ship itself was a perfect time capsule, a snapshot of medieval life abruptly halted, but the vibrant, living souls it carried had simply ceased to be aboard, leaving behind only the ghost of their presence, an unsettling vacuum where human warmth and life had once thrived. It defied all known forms of disappearance, all conventional explanations of maritime disaster. The Saint Hilarion had returned, but the very essence of her voyage, the lives she carried, had been spirited away to some unknown, terrifying destination. As word of the Saint Hilarion's impossible return reached the ears of the Church, particularly the higher echelons of the ecclesiastical hierarchy, a profound unease, bordering on outright panic, began to spread through the ancient cloisters and hallowed halls. This was not merely a maritime anomaly. It was a challenge to the very order of God's creation, a blasphemous distortion of divine law. Obscure monastic texts, long forgotten and recently unearthed from the musty, dust-laden archives of a secluded cloister near Saint Malo, a place of quiet contemplation and ancient secrets, began to reveal chilling references to the original disappearance. These were not public records, but private observations, theological ponderings, and fearful warnings penned by scholarly monks who had witnessed the original event or felt its spiritual reverberations. One such document, a brittle yellowed letter from a 17th century priest, Father Anselm of Saint Malo, written shortly after the Saint Hilarion's rediscovery, stands as a chilling testament to the Church's profound unease. His script, though elegant, betrayed a tremor, a subtle fear that seeped through the very ink. It reads, "To my esteemed brother superior, concerning the vessel now returned to our shores, sighted by the fishermen of this parish, we have seen the vessel, by God's grace or his curse, it is not for me to say. It is the Saint Hilarion, undoubtedly so, her form identical to the records, her timbers miraculously preserved. But let no man, however curious, however learned, set foot upon her decks again. Let her be sealed, quarantined from the living world, for her touch carries an unholy chill, a presence that defies the natural order. For the Saint Hilarion did not return, brother. She simply arrived where she should not have gone, and was, by some unseen, unholy force, sent back from there." The implication of Father Anselm's words was terrifying. The ship had not merely been lost to the sea, nor had it drifted in some natural current. It had visited a place beyond human comprehension, a realm outside of time and space, a domain utterly alien to the divine order as understood by man. And whatever entity, whatever force resided there, had chosen to expel it, to cast it back, stripped of its living cargo, as if it were an anomaly, an unwelcome intrusion into a realm never meant for mortal eyes. This chilling assessment was not dismissed. A subsequent decree, an urgent missive penned on heavy parchment, and bearing the formidable seal of a higher ecclesiastical authority, still preserved in the Vatican archives, explicitly forbade further investigation or interaction with the vessel. It ordered the Saint Hilarion to be towed to a secluded, forgotten cove, a place known only to a select few, secured with heavy chains, and left undisturbed for all eternity. No one was to board her, no one was to approach her. She was to be a silent, forbidden monument to an unknown horror. The Church, it seemed, with its vast repository of ancient knowledge and its deep understanding of both the sacred and the profane, feared what the Saint Hilarion represented, not just a temporal anomaly, but a profound breach in the very fabric of reality, a glimpse into something that humankind was not meant to witness. She was a vessel returned from a place that should not exist, carrying not a cargo of treasure, but a burden of existential dread, a chilling testament to realms beyond salvation or damnation. Her very presence was a threat, a silent scream across the centuries, whispering of an abyss far deeper than the ocean itself. To modern minds, steeped in the ever-advancing currents of scientific understanding, the tale of the Saint Hilarion does not immediately scream of divine curses or spectral visitations. Instead, it resonates with the unsettling echo of a profound scientific anomaly, a temporal distortion of a magnitude rarely, if ever, conceived. Dr. Alistair Finch, a renowned medieval maritime historian from Oxford, whose meticulous research often bridges the chasm between ancient lore and contemporary theory, has posited a compelling hypothesis. In his recently published paper, Echoes of Eternity: Time Slips in Maritime History, he proposes that the vessel might have encountered a highly localized, naturally occurring temporal bubble. Imagine a bubble of space-time, Dr. Finch elaborates, his voice precise and measured in archived interviews, where the flow of time is drastically altered or even halted. The Saint Hilarion could have, by sheer cosmic ill fortune, sailed into such a pocket, effectively being frozen in its state for 3 full centuries, while the world outside continued its relentless march of progress and decay. This stasis field, as he terms it, would explain the miraculous preservation of the ship's timbers, the pristine state of its logbook, and the untouched nature of its interior, as if it had simply been lifted out of time itself. Building upon this, Dr. Lena Petrova, a brilliant theoretical physicist specializing in the arcane intricacies of space-time mechanics, offers a deeper, more unsettling layer to the hypothesis. We know from Einstein's groundbreaking theories that gravity can warp space-time, she explains in a recent symposium address, her gaze distant, fixed on concepts beyond common understanding. Could an extreme, transient gravitational anomaly, perhaps linked to a deep-sea geological event of immense, unprecedented power, or even an undiscovered cosmic phenomenon, a micro-black hole, a wormhole throat, have created a localized time slip? The ship, once caught within the event horizon of such an anomaly, would simply exist outside the normal progression of linear time, suspended in a moment that was, simultaneously, the past, the present, and the future, only to be released when the anomaly dissipated, perfectly preserved, a ghost of its former self, yet utterly real. This hypothesis, while still speculative and demanding phenomena far beyond our current observational capabilities, offers a tantalizing scientific framework for what was once considered pure supernatural horror. It suggests that the ocean's depths conceal not only monstrous creatures and lost civilizations, but also forces that bend the very fabric of reality, turning centuries into moments and moments into eternity. The Saint Hilarion, then, becomes less a cursed vessel and more a cosmic anomaly, a chilling testament to the universe's capacity for the utterly inexplicable, a silent echo of a journey through the impossible. But what of Father Anselm's chilling pronouncement scrawled in that ancient letter, the words that resonate with a primal, existential dread sent back from there? This implies agency, a deliberate act, a conscious decision by some unseen force. It suggests that the Saint Hilarion did not merely drift into a temporal anomaly. she inadvertently stumbled into a true non-place, a void or an extra-dimensional space where the very concepts of past, present, and future cease to exist, where the linear progression of time holds no sway. Ancient myths, whispered across countless cultures and through the mists of forgotten ages, speak of such liminal realms, places between worlds, where the veil separating realities is thin, permeable. The Celtic otherworld, the Aboriginal dreamtime, the spirit realms of shamanic traditions, all hint at such interstitial spaces. Perhaps the abyss, that crushing, lightless expanse beneath the waves, is not merely the deepest part of the ocean, but also a gateway, a liquid portal to such a realm. The Saint Hilarion and its living occupants, the captain, the bishop, the 100 soldiers, might have briefly entered this alien domain, this realm of timelessness. What they witnessed there, what horrors or wonders they encountered, remains a terrifying unknown. But the fabric of that reality, or perhaps an unseen custodian or guardian of such a place, might have deemed them foreign, an unwelcome intrusion into a domain never meant for mortal eyes or mortal understanding. The ship, being an inanimate object, a mere vessel of wood and iron, was simply expelled, cast back from that impossible shore, returned to its point of entry in the linear flow of our reality. But the living souls, the captain, the bishop, the soldiers, were either consumed by this void, dissolved into its timelessness, their very essence perhaps becoming part of its fabric, or perhaps, in a thought more terrifying than annihilation, they are still there, in that timeless non-place, existing in an eternal, horrifying present, forever removed from the linear progression of mortal time, trapped in an unending moment, watching the echoes of their own past, their future, their very being, stretch into an incomprehensible infinity. This hypothesis paints a picture not of a random scientific anomaly, but of an encounter with something deliberate, something that guards the boundaries of existence. It transforms the ocean's depths into a threshold, a place where the familiar world ends and an unfathomable cosmos begins. The Saint Hilarion, then, becomes a chilling messenger from the edge of reality, a silent scream across the centuries, whispering of an abyss far deeper than the ocean itself, an abyss not of water, but of time, and of something that waits, watches, and sometimes sends things back. While the allure of the supernatural, the profound scientific anomaly, and the chilling concept of an extra-dimensional void are undeniably compelling, it is our duty, as chroniclers of these mysteries, to also consider the more grounded, if still incredibly improbable, explanations. For even in the most fantastical tales, there often lies a kernel of the mundane, albeit stretched to its absolute breaking point. Could the Saint Hilarion, for instance, have been caught in a unique, long-lasting, and as yet undiscovered deep ocean current, a vast, slow-moving gyre, perhaps, that carried her far from human contact, preserving her in the cold, dark, oxygen-depleted waters of some forgotten trench for centuries, only for her to be released by a seismic shift in that current or a rare convergence of oceanic forces? The cold, the pressure, the lack of light, these factors are known to inhibit decay. However, the pristine condition of her decks, the very fabric of the sails, and the delicate personal effects within the cabins, all untouched by the ravages of barnacles, marine worms, or the crushing embrace of the deep, make this difficult to reconcile. A ship adrift for 300 years, even in ideal conditions, would bear some mark of its long, silent journey. Alternatively, was the disappearance and subsequent reappearance of the Saint Hilarion a mass psychological event, a localized, intensely disorienting, and unusually persistent fog, combined with a powerful, undiscovered magnetic anomaly or an atmospheric phenomenon, could have induced widespread hallucinations among the exhausted, superstitious crew. The logbook entries, while chilling in their description of alien stars and a wrong light, could be interpreted as the descent into madness under extreme stress and isolation. The ship itself might have been abandoned, its crew launching lifeboats in a fit of collective delusion or panic, convinced they were sailing into an unholy realm. They would then have perished at sea, leaving the empty vessel to drift for centuries before being rediscovered. Its immaculate state a mere coincidence of currents and climate, its preservation a trick of the light, and a testament to the sea's unpredictable nature. Yet, these rational explanations, while attempting to anchor the fantastic in the realm of the plausible, still face immense challenges. The utter lack of any sign of struggle on deck, the perfectly untouched nature of the ship's interior, and most importantly, the almost supernatural precision of the 300-year interval between disappearance and reappearance, all conspire to defy conventional logic. These details, precise and unsettling, make the rational explanations almost as fantastical as the temporal displacement theories or the interdimensional voyages. Perhaps the true nature of the Saint Hilarion's journey lies not in a single, simple answer, but in a confluence of unlikely events, a perfect storm of natural phenomena, human psychology, and perhaps, just perhaps, a fleeting brush with something truly inexplicable. The ocean, after all, remains the last great frontier on our planet, a vast, churning enigma that continues to guard secrets far deeper and stranger than we can ever fully comprehend. The Saint Hilarion stands as a silent, wooden question mark, reminding us that sometimes the most rational explanation is simply that we do not yet have the full truth. The Saint Hilarion stands as a silent monument to the ocean's profound, terrifying secrets, a ship that sailed beyond the charted waters of this world, beyond the very boundaries of time itself, only to return, perfectly preserved, yet utterly devoid of the life it once carried. Was it a temporal ghost? A victim of an unknown natural phenomenon that folded reality upon itself? Or was it something far more profound and terrifying? A vessel that brushed against the edge of eternity, a realm where past and future hold no meaning, and from which only the inanimate are expelled. Her empty decks, her untouched logbook, and the chilling monastic injunction against her investigation all whisper a single, unsettling truth. They remind us that the sea is not merely water and waves, not just currents and depths. It is a veil, a shifting membrane between our reality and something vast, indifferent, and utterly beyond our comprehension. A place where the rules we understand simply cease to apply. What do you believe happened to the Saint Hilarion? Was she truly sent back from a place that should not exist? Or does a more grounded, yet equally chilling, explanation lie hidden beneath the waves of time? Share your